the home of exotic beaches, astounding historical sites, and some of the best food on the North American continent just got an upgrade, and it's a big one. Spanning 1,554 kilometers, or 966 miles, the Tren Maya is the latest project to hit the streets of Mexico. Promising to not only serve tourists, but to also increase the quality of life for citizens, the new railway seems to be a dream come true for the region. However, all is not what it seems, and Mexico has a new problem that quite literally could make or break the country. So what exactly is the Tren Maya? Why is it so important? And how is it possible that this $29 billion project is one of Mexico's greatest gambles? Stay tuned to find out. When you think of Mexico, the first thing that will probably come to mind are tacos and vacations. From spicy traditional exotic foods to stunning beaches and heritage sites so amazing one of them got labeled a wonder of the world, Mexico has it all. It's labeled as one of the most visited vacation countries in the world and relies so much on tourism that it makes about 9% of its GDP and brings in millions of people to the region. And when we say millions, we mean millions. In fact, in 2023 alone, Mexico welcomed over 42 million international visitors. That's impressive by itself. But what's even more striking is that this number represents a 10% increase from 2022, a 6% decrease from 2019, and a massive 42% jump from 2020, when the pandemic caused a sharp decline in tourism. With that said, Mexico had a serious problem. See, although tourism puts the country on the map, this dependence on visitors caused a concentration of wealth on the coast of the country, causing a kind of poverty trend that deepened as you went deeper into the country. For example, as of 2022, Chiapas, one of the popular inland cities in Mexico, was named the poorest state in the region, with around 74% of its population living in poverty. At the same time, nearly 28.1% of people in Chiapas lived in extreme poverty, one of the highest rates in the country. Chiapas even had one of the lowest GDPs per capita in Mexico, providing around $3,700, which, as you can tell, is significantly below the national average. But Chiapas isn't the only suffering state, as Oaxaca, another southern state, has a poverty rate of around 61.7%. It has approximately 22.9% of its population living in extreme poverty. There's also Guerrero, which is one of the most economically challenged states in Mexico, with about 66.4% of its population living in poverty. These statistics clearly demonstrate that the nation's wealth was heavily concentrated along the coast, and prompt action was needed to address it. Announced by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, AMLO, in September 2018, the solution to this problem became one of the most ambitious infrastructure undertakings in Mexico's recent history. Spanning an impressive 1,554 kilometers, or 966 miles, the Tren Maya Railway was designed to create a loop around the Yucatan Peninsula, connecting bustling tourist destinations like Cancun and Tulum with more rural and less-known areas across Chiapas, Tabasco, Campeche, Quintana Roo, and Yucatan. The goal here was to share the resources by transporting tourists around these destinations. By linking the main towns in the region, with 42 trains carrying up to 3 million passengers a year, the train became not just a transportation project, but a way to boost tourism, create economic opportunities, and improve connectivity in the region. Costing a whopping $29 billion, funding for the Tren Maya project primarily came from a tourism tax and funds redirected from other programs, including the iconic Mexican Grand Prix. Initially estimated in December 2018 to cost about 150 billion pesos, or around $7.4 billion, the project was estimated to attract 8,000 daily riders. However, the cost underwent significant revisions, and by 2019, a public policy think tank estimated it could reach 480 billion pesos, or approximately $25.3 billion. Following this, in October 2021, the National Fund for Tourism Development, FONATUR, revised the estimate to 200 billion pesos. In the end, the Secretariat of Tourism received a budget increase of 647.1% for 2021, with 94% allocated for the Tren Maya. This budget was one of the many problems the Tren Maya brought with its construction. For a clear view of things, this train cost the same as many airports worldwide, which many felt would have done much better good for the country. But we'll talk about the problems later, because the construction of this train was a monumental undertaking. Launched with a traditional Mayan ritual on December 16, 2018, by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the project was divided into 7 sections, each covering different parts of the Yucatan Peninsula. Section 1 stretches 141 miles, or 228 kilometers, from Palenque to Escarcega. That's like driving from Los Angeles to San Diego. This region is rich with Mayan ruins and delicious traditional food. Next up, Section 2 covers 146 miles, or 235 kilometers, from Escarcega to Calquini, about the same distance as running 5 marathons in a row. And just like Section 1, it is packed with Mayan sites and mouth-watering cuisines. Section 3 spans 107 miles, or 172 kilometers, from Calquini to Izamal, a charming city known for its iconic yellow buildings. And for perspective, this section is as long as 2 New York City marathons. Section 4 takes up 160 miles, or 257 kilometers, from Izamal to Cancun Airport, about the same distance as driving from Miami to West Palm Beach. Then we have Section 5, the shortest of all the sections, which is a 75-mile, or 121-kilometer, ride from Cancun Airport to Tulum, where the beaches are pristine and the ruins are legendary. Section 6 follows, covering 158 miles, or 254 kilometers, from Tulum to Bacalar, famous for its stunning lagoon. And finally, Section 7 brings it all together, with a 178-mile, or 287-kilometer, stretch from Bacalar back to Escarcega, completing the loop and connecting all these incredible regions. In total, the Mayan train network is approximately the same as traveling from New York City to Chicago. However, this particular ride takes you through some of the most stunning sights, jungles, and beaches in the world. To call it magical is an understatement, and looking at the sheer engineering prowess needed to bring it to life is a good way to see this. Officially kicking off construction in June 2020, with major construction companies like Mota and Jill Mexico SAPI and China Communications Construction Company at the helm. The project was faced with an onslaught of problems, the first being the fact that this massive railway would cut through 5 states, namely Quintana Roo, Yucatan, Campeche, Tabasco, and Chiapas. As if that wasn't enough, one of the most daunting challenges in building the Tren Maya was the region's cursed topography, which was filled with porous limestone that could easily lead to sinkholes. With the ever-present fear of a sudden hole in the tracks, traditional construction methods were inadequate for the unstable soil. To combat this, engineers employed advanced techniques in geotechnical engineering, using a combination of piles and anchor blocks to ensure the stability of the railway tracks. These innovative foundation systems were of the utmost importance because they stood to prevent future structural issues, allowing the railway to withstand the unique geological conditions of the Yucatan Peninsula. But that was just the beginning, because, as mentioned, the Tren Maya cuts through 5 states. Now, besides coordination, that was a big deal because it also passes through several protected areas, including the Calakmul Biosphere Reserve and the Sian Khan Biosphere Reserve. As if that wasn't enough, besides the impossible deadline of 4 years the president had promised, the project had to incorporate advanced engineering solutions to meet its objectives. A good example is the Boca del Cerro Bridge, a major highlight of the Tren Maya project. Located in Tenasique, Tabasco, this bridge is a double steel truss structure with composite action, consisting of both steel and concrete, with variable depth for enhanced durability. Engineering grammar aside, this bridge masterfully features a strong design made of 2 steel frameworks that work together, using a mix of steel and concrete for extra strength. To make sure it stands strong, the structure has varying thicknesses to make it more durable and able to withstand different stresses. As if that wasn't mind-bending enough, the bridge spans 160 meters, or 525 feet, and was built using a method called incremental cantilevers, which means it was constructed in sections extending out from either side. It was built this way, once more, because of the environment. This technique allowed the bridge to be built without support on the riverbed, greatly reducing environmental disruption. Building this monstrosity was no small feat. In fact, to put it into perspective, constructing the bridge required about 2,200 tons of steel. That's the weight of more than 300 elephants. For the concrete, they used about 9,800 cubic meters, which is enough to fill around 4 Olympic-sized swimming pools. To hold everything together, 2 massive crane towers were erected, acting like the strong arms of a weightlifter, helping to lift and position heavy materials into place. Meanwhile, mobile advance carriages moved along, ensuring the construction of the bridge's 30-meter-long piers was as smooth and efficient as a well-oiled machine, kind of like how the train rolls along its tracks today. The bridge was built to last, designed for an impressive lifespan of about 100 years, which is roughly the same as the time it takes for a family to go through 4 generations. So, when the kids of today are grandparents, the bridge will still be standing strong. Once again, these are the statistics for the bridge and not the whole railway. In fact, they were so intentional in building that the nearby vehicular bridge got a facelift and is set to serve for an additional 30 years. Beyond these challenges, the Tren Maya was also engineered to operate as an energy-efficient transportation system. Yup, with the capability of reaching speeds of up to 160 kilometers per hour, it aims to serve both passenger and freight needs. The train has the capacity to carry 3,200 passengers per trip and will incorporate regenerative braking systems and LED lighting to reduce energy consumption and environmental impact. Of course, this energy crisis will become a problem later, but more on that later. For now, let's look at the timeline, because the speed at which the railway was built needs to be studied. As of June 2021, construction progress stood at 10%, rising to 25% by February 2022, and reaching a whopping 67% by June 2023. Suddenly, operations officially began on December 15th the same year, with services resuming on January 1st, 2024, after a brief pause to prepare for extensions to Palenque. Even today, new stations, including those at Chichen Itza and Valladolid, are expected to enhance accessibility to even more cultural landmarks. Moving away from construction, what is a ride on Tren Maya like? Stunning views aside, the Tren Maya offers a variety of classes to enhance the travel experience through the beautiful Yucatan Peninsula. For one, the standard Mayan train features 2 options: tourist class, with seats arranged in rows of 4 for a budget-friendly journey, and premier class, providing more spacious seating and complimentary box lunches. For a business class experience, the Zimbal offers standard seating and a buffet car, perfect for travelers wanting to dine on the go. But before you start to think about all the mouth-watering dishes, you need to take a look at the Janal train, which takes dining to new heights. Boasting an elegant dining car showcasing stunning aquatic views and an interior inspired by architect Louis Barragan, this section is bound to take you on a culinary trip within a magical trip. For long-distance journeys, the Patal train offers reclining seats and comfortable sleeping cabins, with some having private showers for added convenience. One cool thing about the train is that it represents the Mayan history of the region, as each section is an indigenous translation of its use. So, Patal means to stay, Zimbal means journey or stroll, and Janal unironically means to eat. To enjoy this massive train, local fares were set at 50 pesos, while tourists were expected to pay about 800 to 1,000 pesos for additional services. To make sure the locals loved this railway, President Lopez Obrador announced a military operation of 3 sections to ensure profits supported pensions for retirees. Now, you would think that with so much intentionality and planning, the Tren Maya would be accepted wholeheartedly by the people of Mexico. But that isn't the case. Even though the Tren Maya by 2030 would provide 715,000 jobs for municipalities with train stations, 150,000 jobs in rural areas, 80,000 jobs in construction, and even add $5.2 billion to the country's economy, not everyone is a fan of the railway. And this all boils down to the meticulous construction we touched on earlier. See, one of the major reasons people resent the railway is the fact that the construction threatened the habitats of endangered species like jaguars and pumas, especially in the Calakmul Reserve we talked about, where the jaguar population is extremely important. While the train plans include wildlife crossings, experts argue that these measures, mainly consisting of underpasses, may not adequately support the needs of many territorial species that require more extensive habitats to thrive. Sadly, the construction is expected to lead to the loss of approximately 4,000 hectares of forest, making worse the already alarming deforestation crisis in the Yucatan Peninsula. The scariest part is that as tourism increases, concerns about water shortages continue to grow, with no studies assessing whether current water resources can meet the projected demands. For example, Playa del Carmen's population rose from 43,000 in the year 2000 to 304,000 in 2020, overwhelming the infrastructure and even causing sewage to seep into the water system. Now, imagine this population in a place like Chichen Itza, which receives 2 million visitors per year, a figure estimated to grow with this railway. This rise will not only put a strain on the infrastructure, but also on the local population, fueling concerns that tourists could harm the region's historic landscapes and lead to situations like this and this. As if that's not enough, the project also impacted the region's cherished cenotes. For those unfamiliar, a cenote is a natural sinkhole or pool created by the collapse of limestone bedrock, revealing the groundwater beneath. These are famous for their crystal clear waters and are popular spots for swimming and diving. However, besides tourism, these cenotes make up a huge part of the region's aquifer and provide drinking water for about 5 million people. Not to mention the project's rapid construction has raised red flags about transparency and adequate consultation with local communities and the indigenous people of these communities. Many today fear that the promised economic benefits will be eclipsed by long-term environmental degradation and disruptions to their ancestral lands, raising serious concerns about the project's true impact on both people and nature. Despite government assurances of safety, many environmentalists warn that the project's consequences could irreversibly harm the region's delicate ecosystems. But what do you think? Is the Tren Maya a gem for Mexico? Or is it simply a legacy project of the president as he leaves office? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this glimpse into these fascinating structures, hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing stories about incredible mega projects. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, some of the most incredible projects are lined up for you. See you in the next video. Ciao.